This is Power 98.7. And now you're listening to Power Talk with Mbuyiseni and Dlozi, 9 a.m. to midday, taking your calls on 0861 987 000.
It's 11 minutes past 10. It is Power 98.7 that you're listening to. It is Power Talk. Of course, Denzil Taylor standing in for, Mbuyiseni and Dlozi, who, of course, has taken a bit of a rest on our birthday, celebrating our birthday, I hope, in style as well. It is the 18th of June. It is Power 98.7. It is Power Talk. It is Wednesday. The studio line to call is 0861 987 000. The WhatsApp line 0833037093. And on Twitter at PowerFM987. Our show hashtag is Power Talk. On Facebook, as you know, you can get us on Power FM frequencies in and around Gauteng. You would know this already. You've been listening to us for 12 years. You've been engaging. And even if you haven't been listening to us for 12 years, you've picked us up along the road. You would also know that the frequencies, Pretoria, Johannesburg, are 98.7. Joburg South and the West Rand, 103.6. In Vereniging, we are on 104.4. And in the East Rand, Ekurhuleni, 107.2. The audio channel, DSTV, Audio Bouquet, we are 889. Online streaming is at www.powerfm.co.za. Recently, you would have seen that, and you will begin to feel it in your pockets, that there is a current fuel levy, and that current fuel levy, of course, is the funding model for, amongst others, the Road Accident Fund. So, years and years and years, we have been hearing stories and the narrative that there is a deficit at the Road Accident Fund, and that deficit, I think in 2023-2024 stood at 25.5 billion. In the previous year, it would have been, 23 point something. So on the increase as well, that particular deficit. So the entity, by mere economic language, expenditure exceeding its outcome. The AG has also said that it is uncertain times and it is a growing concern. That is, of course, the Road Accident Fund, and also within that AG's report may face solvency challenges as per this debt as well. The accumulated debt, I said, around about 25.5 billion rand over the years. So the head Road Accident Fund Corporate Communications individual is McIntos Polela, and we are trying to get hold of McIntos, not ready yet. I see McIntos said that we should call him in a few minutes. It is a few minutes, and we'll engage then with him, of course, when he is on the line. But he's not on the line at the moment, and we want to just have that conversation as well around his funding model, also around what's going on with the board, the issues around its board, and then also Collins Letswalo, the CEO, who also has a dual role, who is the Chief Claims Officer as well. Those things have changed. And then, of course, there's also the AGSA reports on all of this, and recently also in front of Scopa, and the issues then that Scopa would have raised around the Road Accident Fund. The Road Accident Fund having changed its internal accounting models also, and wanting rather to be a social benefit fund rather than to be seen as an insurer. And that has brought about 3 years or more of a adverse audit finding. And so disclaimers in light of the Road Accident Fund. And then we've got what the Road Accident Fund always also suggests, is that there are lawyers on the side and individuals who then would sit on the sidelines and utilize the Road Accident Fund for incidents of fraud or corruption. We will speak to those individuals as well. McIntos Polela still not with us, not engaging us at this particular point. I see temporarily unavailable. Let's take a small break whilst we try to get McIntos Polela on the line. And I'm hoping McIntos Polela comes on to the conversation, because it is an important conversation to be held anyway, in light of all the issues that we have said anyway. And also, just that big question, deficit, and why a deficit after all of these years, when you would consider that the funding model of the Road Accident Fund is a fuel levy. And when you think about a fuel levy, it sits there as a fund that just accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. Why, the issuance then of all of the deficits and adverse audits and disclaimers that we also have to deal with. Let's take a small break.
Power Talk on Power 98.7.
It's 18 minutes past 10 o'clock, still trying to get hold of McIntos on the other side of that. The Road Accident Fund, the RAF, provides compulsory cover to all users of the South African road, citizens and foreigners alike, against injuries sustained or deaths arising from accidents involving motor vehicles within the borders of South Africa. This covers in the form of indemnity insurance to the person who caused the accident, as well as personal injury and death insurance to victims of motor vehicle accidents and their families. The RAF is responsible for providing appropriate cover to all road users within the borders of South Africa, and I say that again, within the borders of South Africa, rehabilitating and compensating persons injured as a result of motor vehicles in a timely and caring manner also. And actively promoting the safe use of all South African roads. McIntos Polela is on the line, Road Accident Fund Head of Communications. McIntos, welcome to Power Talk. Welcome to Power 98.7. How are you?
Good, my lord. Oh, wow.
McIntos?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Sure. Now I can hear you, McIntos. I said good morning and welcome to Power 98.7. McIntos? And see if we can get McIntos Polela on the line there. Of course, we want to be talking about all of the issues that I have been raising in the introduction, and also just some relevant present-day issues. There's the issue of Collins Letswalo and the board, and where he is in the issue. Also where, of course, the present funding model stands, the current fuel levy, and how that will make a difference. There's issues of deficits, and then also backlogs of people and claimants who need to be paid. Also, there's an issue of litigation and litigated claims, and those are also on the increase. With us then also in studio, Tebogo Mokoena, legal officer. Tebogo, what does that even mean, Lebogo?
Well, being a legal officer, it entails dealing with complaints that we receive from members of the public. So
sure.
Part of those complaints, obviously, they also incorporate complaints in relation to RAF matters, wherein they have instructed attorneys and they complain in terms of maybe delays in finalizations or allegations of maybe I didn't receive the full payment that was received by
sure.
the attorney, and that the attorney has taken more than what they were entitled to in terms of the agreement. So basically that entails leading those investigations and prosecuting them if we have established that there is prima facie evidence of misconduct on the part of those practitioners involved.
Sure, that's from the Legal Practice Council, right?
That's correct.
And then I've also got Suraysha Pather. Suraysha Pather.
Good morning.
Welcome. Good morning.
And thank you for having us here.
Sure.
So I'm the manager of the Risk and Compliance Department, and we come in second fold to Tebogo, who's from the Disciplinary and Regulatory Department. To explain where we come in, I think the word risk and compliance speaks volumes. So we look at the risk and we comply. We come in when there is a court order in place and the attorney has been suspended or an attorney has passed on. And what we then do is we notify the public and we wind down. So if I have to take you through exactly what we do, the moment we receive a court order from Tebogo's department, we immediately place a hold on the trust bank account. So monies cannot be touched because the curator bonus, which is the director of LPC Gauteng Provision, has a hold and a responsibility over those trust accounts. So the court order is sent to the bank. It places a hold on the trust account, and we have legal officers, which is part of our curators unit, who will then physically go and wind down a firm. So we physically go into an attorney's firm, we wind the firm down, and we bring the files back to the LPC. We have them captured, and once they're captured, notice letters are sent out to the claimants to notify them where their files can be located. The files are collected. We do have panel attorneys that are vetted, no complaints on their background, that can either take over the matter, or the claimant can take their file to whichever attorney they wish to take the file to, because at the end of the day, the file belongs to the client. But what is really important with any matter, whether it's RAF or it's a conveyancing matter, an estate matter, general litigation, the public themselves, they need to know that the attorney that they are going to, one, is on our roll, on our practicing roll, and that they do have a valid Fidelity Fund certificate for the year 2025. So it would be from February to December, because this allows you access into the trust bank account. And that's how we deal with our department, because once you get the files back, you get the claim, you get the files, you notify the claimants, they come in, they collect their files, and we place a hold on the trust bank account. And the important part about this is whether there's money in that account or there's a deficit, because the moment there's a deficit in the trust account, we hand the matter over to the Legal Practice Fidelity Fund, which is it's an insurance. And they would then handle the claims when there's a deficit. But that is why I said it's very important for members of the public to know they have access to us, the LPC, at any time. You can walk into our offices, you can phone us, you can go onto our website, you can email us, and we will always advise you if you're going to an attorney, whether the attorney has a FFC, whether you're going to a legit attorney. In saying that, those are the processes that we run within the curators unit, risk and compliance, because we worry about the risk and we always want to comply. So that being said, that's how my department, that's how I fit in.
Let me bring McIntosh. McIntosh, I'm going to say welcome to Power 98.7. Welcome to Power Talk again, Brewer. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, my lord. I hope we can hear each other now.
McIntosh, I can hear you, and I can hear you perfectly. Welcome. The last time I think I spoke to you was in the evening, Power Perspective, and so here we are, Power Talk in the day, and I'm glad it's in the day, and daylight is all around. McIntosh, let me just start here, McIntosh, with what both Tebogo and Suraysha have said, just around. And what I draw from it is the protection of individuals, the protection of claimants, the protection of people, of course, who do come to the RAF and suggest that, they've been in an incident and, they start filling in forms. After you've heard what they've said, from risk management to compliance to also disciplinary issues, the working relationship, and I'm deliberately going to start here because I think what Suraysha has done is laid the platform for that. I would have wanted to come into all sorts of other things first, but let me just start there. The general working relationship, firstly, between the RAF and Legal Practice Council and the legal fraternity in general, how would you describe that?
I will start with the Legal Practice Council. So our relationship has not been an easy one, to the point where, we had a ping pong, or like a skirmish, so to speak, in the media, where our CEO was not happy with the speed at which the matters that are referred to the LPC are taken. And I remember at some point that we received a threatening letter from the LPC where we were told that we needed to retract what we had said in a press statement. But I must say that, it's improving to the point where sometime last year we saw the LPC sending out a press statement saying that they would welcome complaints and sending out guidelines. And so we appreciate that. And so the relationship is improving. But I must say that in the past, we were very, very critical and we were very vocal about our relationship with the LPC, which at the time we were not happy about. Now, on the legal fraternity, has decided to take on a posture. Not all of them, by the way. There are just several ones which we've paid a lot of money to that have decided that they want to wage war with the Road Accident Fund. And we have called them, especially in the past, to say, we need to fight less and talk more. So we would want, just as the relationship with the LPC has improved in the recent past, we would like to call on the legal fraternity in general to stop waging war with the Road Accident Fund and to come to the table. Because unfortunately, we see lawyers that would delay cases in some instances. And obviously, the general public will point at the door of the Road Accident Fund. But we also see one or two who go to the extent of paying for a campaign in the media, an ongoing campaign in the media, and they continue to do so. They never miss a SCOPA meeting in Parliament. They never miss feeding Parliament with information, sometimes false information and questions that have to be asked to the Road Accident Fund, to members of Parliament when the Road Accident Fund appears in Parliament. So the relationship with the legal fraternity in general is fraught. But I must say in conclusion that the relationship with the LPC is improving and it's a work in progress.
Let me ask you this, McIntosh. When the most important person in the room is that particular claimant who would have been through an accident and been through, an incident that they wouldn't have wanted in their lives, and then hope that all the systems then come into play and all the entities and institutions come into play for them as well when they are at their weakest and when they are most needed. All of the conversations that seem to be held, whether it's with the legal fraternity or the Legal Practice Council, which then looks at risk and compliance and disciplinary issues within that particular fraternity as well, and your role as, then coming to, the aid of someone who would have been in an accident. It sometimes just overshadows all of the incidences that we talk about, overshadows that particular individual who is the most important and most vulnerable at that particular time. How do we steer clear of all of the noise and get back to that individual who needs you the most?
It has to start, and we have said, with the RAF itself. And I've spoken to you before, and I've spoken to many people, to say the RAF system as it stands now is unworkable. We need to go back to the drawing board, and we have attempted to go back to the drawing board with the RAF bill of 2023, which we sent to the Department of Transport, and obviously which we hope that is going to be dealt with by Parliament. But that bill obviously has morphed into a different document. But in essence, what we want to do is we want to get the RAF working. The RAF from about 1946, when it was started, has never worked. It has had no less than 7 commissions of inquiries, which have all come and said, you need to rework the system. It used to be in the hands of the private sector until about the 90s, and it went bankrupt several times. As I speak to you, we are technically bankrupt because we are expected to pay thousands upon thousands of people millions and millions of rand. Last year, we paid, for the last financial year, around 45 billion to claimants, and we still had a shortfall of 16 billion. So the system in itself is unworkable. Starting from it just quite apart from the relationship with the people in the panel that represents the organizations that you're talking about.
Sure.
So it starts with us. And unfortunately, as you say, the claimant is the one who is the loser in all of this.
McIntosh, pause there. It's 28 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm going to bring them in a second. Let's take the news.
Power Talk on Power 98.7.
McIntos Polela is the Road Accident Fund Head of Corporate Communications, and in studio Tebogo Mokoena, Legal Officer, Legal Practice Counsel, and I've also got Suraysha Pather, Legal Practice Counsel, also looking Manager Risk and Compliance at the LPC. I'm going to bring, as McIntosh says, my guest in studio there. So he would be speaking to the two of you. Tebogo and Suraysha, you can come up as you need. My understanding as the Road Accident Fund would operate, and McIntosh does not have the greatest things to say in the nicest of language about the legal fraternity that he's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But the issue at hand is somebody from the public is in an accident. They need to engage the Road Accident Fund, or they need to go to a lawyer first who then engages the Road Accident Fund. And in many of the instances, that is where then the problems arise. Either there are delays. People will say that, forms were not filled in properly. Either people will say that the Road Accident Fund has a particular time frame within to pay out, claims. Others would say there are legal people who are involved who are to blame for some of the unethical issues that are happening. The individual is still the particular claimant at hand. You would deal, I would assume, with those lawyers, unscrupulous as they would be in instances, right? And you would, as Suraysha was saying there in the beginning, you would have certain measures that you would put in play. There are certain things that you can also do as the legal practice counsel. But in the engagement with the Road Accident Fund, how would you engage them to a concern where, for example, and I'll give the example, they might not have come to the party to pay out within a certain particular time. And they might have various reasons for that. They might be investigating, they might be, forms might not have been filled in. What is your engagement? Because a lot of people today who are listening, who would want to approach you as the legal practice counsel, would want an understanding of what they bring to you when they have an issue of this particular nature. How do you deal with RAF?
Okay, first of all, when we receive complaints, particularly that are in relation to the RAF, we have to see what is the nature of the person's complaint. Right. Are they complaining about whether the trust relationship between them and the attorney has deteriorated? Are they complaining about, the attorney has not accounted to them? Or are they complaining about whether the attorney has not paid the money subsequent to RAF putting the money or paying into their trust account? Now, once we receive the complaint, we collate all the information we receive from the complainant, and then we take that and we write to the attorney as prescribed in the Act that, look, this is the complaint that we've received. You have such a certain date to give us a response. And obviously, once we have the response from the legal practitioner concerned, then we get to have a full picture of actually what transpired with the claimant's matter. And I mean, in one of the inceptional letters that we write to attorneys, particularly my office, I would request certain prescribed documents like the power of attorney, a fee amended agreement, a contingency fee agreement. And in response, I expect the attorney to be in a position to place us in their confidence in giving us all this information. So say, for instance, there's no cooperation from the legal practitioner's side. That's when also Suraysha's department come in, where we can now conduct a forensic investigations wherein we have an inspection authorized in terms of Section 37.3a of the LPA, which will authorize them then to go and inspect their attorney's accounting records. So by doing that, we get to see how much exactly was paid by the RAF to the attorney in respect of the claimant's matter and when was it paid. Because once we have that information, then we can determine whether or not was there a duty at the time that the complaint is lodged for the attorney to account. And secondly, did they delay in paying over trust monies? What was the reason thereof? Or could there be possible misappropriation?
Sure.
So the link also with the RAF, it comes and say maybe we need information from them, say for instance in the form of expenditure authorization from them, which is basically a spreadsheet that they can furnish us, which shows that in respect of, say for instance, it's claimant A, and then we contact them and we're seeking this information, we can contact the RAF, and then once we receive that, then it can be able to tell us, so and so is represented by attorney B, and on such a date we settle the general damages at this point, and then this is what we paid in terms of maybe past medical expenses and so on and so forth.
Sounds pretty practical to me, sitting here and listening to, what would happen if somebody had a complaint. Suraysha, what then when Polela says that the relationship could be better, it's getting better, but hasn't been the best. What then are the issues at play there? Because from what I'm hearing Tebogo say, that sounds pretty practical. If you have a problem, we check, we go back and we check with the RAF, we check with the lawyers, we check whether the funds are, we see who's to blame on any instance, and we try to intervene. What then is the sort of tension component between the Legal Practice Council and the RAF? Because from what Tebogo has said, it sounds pretty practical in that particular engagement.
I can't actually speak to tension, but what I can tell you is it's absolutely critical that the LPC and the RAF, we work together to hold each other accountable and actually share information, and we assist one another.
Are you saying there's an instance of unaccountability and not sharing information?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that, because quite honestly, in my department, we engage with the Road Accident Fund. I actually have quite good relationships with people from RAF who are very willing to help with our claims. Because remember, as I said, Tebogo touched on the fact that we have a monitoring department. So actually, my department is made up of 5 sub-departments. And one of the critical departments is our monitoring team that's made up of auditors. And these guys actually come before the suspension takes place. They go in to investigate the books of the attorneys. And when you spoke about claimants coming forth, because sometimes they may not have a clear idea of what's going wrong, so they may come to open up a complaint against an attorney saying, the attorney is not paying me, and it could be that it could be the 180 days, and generally the next step would be to take a writ or go to the ombuds and lay your complaint. However, that's when we come in to get our guys, which is my monitoring team, to investigate the attorney, the RAF complaint, whether it paid out, and what happened to that money. So we get into the trust bank account. But in saying this, where I tie in with the Road Accident Fund is when the suspension order comes into play, I can actually go to the RAF and get that authorization expenditure that will show that the money literally got paid in on a specific day into the attorney's trust bank account. But I would say, I wouldn't say there's lack of accountability. I think we should be supporting each other more. We should be communicating. Collaboration is always welcome.
Let me ask you this, Suraysha, and McIntos, previous interviews, if you've heard him over time and if you read stuff from RAF, there's a particular narrative that says lawyers are bleeding the RAF dry. So lawyers in instances will just have work with the RAF. They'll do no other work apart from just RAF work, and that seems to, feed them pretty well. In essence, then they have found a component whereby they could utilize just RAF work. Where do you come in if the claimant has been in an accident and there is now a legal person in the room? The RAF establishes that they need to pay out 5 million. The legal practitioner is suggesting 85 million that the claimant would be. There's a discrepancy a lot, and it comes to the element of bleeding the RAF dry. So the exorbitant claim sometimes for issues. Sometimes somebody would say, oh, well, I broke my leg, and the medical expenses for that might be 10,000 Rand. But when you deal with the lawyer. The lawyer, in essence, puts something through that says, oh, well, listen, probably for the next 10 years, you're going to have a problem with the leg. And so we're going to put 10 million rand here. And the RAF looks at it and says, you know what, come on. What role do you play in an instance whereby there are differences of that particular nature which then lead to litigation?
We don't actually come in at that point. We come in after the fact when there's a complaint and it's lodged with us. Look, usually we do not get involved unless there is a complaint for us to investigate.
You wouldn't make an assessment of what a true claimant would then, and a realistic claimant would then be putting forward in front of the RAF.
I think to be on the safe side, I mean, the quantum is determined by experts because the claimants go for medical legals, and there's experts in the form of, orthopedic surgeons, actuaries, who are the ones that quantify based on the injuries that these claimants have sustained. So remember, the RAF also has medical legals on their panel who they can take the claimants to in order to see if whether what they are claiming is just and reasonable.
And hence a difference of opinion.
That is correct. But the quantum is determined solely by the qualified people, which are the medical experts that the attorneys engage in terms of quantifying the claims on behalf of their clients. So the LPC does not come anywhere there, because also such payments are made in the form of disbursements by the RAF itself. So we don't get involved, as my Leonard colleague correctly stated. We only get involved if there is a complaint listed before us. And insofar as I'm concerned, it's not so much issues of quantum, because if quantum is justified, then obviously, and the court is satisfied, that is the only way that an order can be given. If it's also based on the extent or the seriousness of the injury sustained by a certain individual, and also the effect that it has on their livelihood as a result of the injury sustained from that accident. So we don't chime in until there's an actual complaint subsequent to the finalization of the matter, and there's discrepancies either in terms of fees or in terms of payments to the claimant.
Tebogo, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to go back to McIntos now. McIntos says, RAF working, it's never worked. It's never worked, he says. McIntos is the Road Accident Fund head of corporate communication. Just before I came to you guys, he said, it's never worked. And he goes back to its inception. What do you make of that particular statement then?
I'm reluctant to comment on it, but I think the stats speak for itself. I mean, I can only speak in as far as the RAF complaints that we've received. I mean, if we date back to since 2019 to 2025, we have investigated and finalized.
But in essence, he's saying you're working with a dysfunctional entity, a dysfunctional unit.
I would understand that, but just allow me to finish, because in order for us to be able to finalize 8,000 complaints in relation to RAF matters alone, then it shows that in as much as she's saying that it hasn't been functional, but for as long as there's accidents and people are getting injured, there's always going to be an influx of work. The issue of it not working, perhaps it's internal issues of the RAF, but insofar as we've been able to assist the members of the public that are coming to us with complaints in relation to their claims, we have been promptly trying to assist them, and also taking into account the seriousness of the complaints, because we don't weigh them the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
McIntos, it's never worked since inception, and I've taken that to heart, and you've said also what those particular issues would be. What in essence lies at the heart of it's never worked? Is it legislation? Is it regulation? Is it the fact that the funding model is wrong? Is it that whole accounting standard, the changes that would have that the AG talks to and that you talk to, the one adopted by yourselves as the RAF, and the one that the AG wants you to comply with, and hence then basically 3 years of adverse audits and disclaimers and the likes, because basically it's come from a point of that particular approved intern reporting standard 4, I think, is the one, and the other one is the International Public Sector Accounting Standard. So that's the one on the one side. Is it an issue of it's rooted in that, or is it rooted in the funding model? And there has been a change to the current fuel levy in essence, and whether that makes any difference at all to your monetary concerns.
So it's a combination of things. It's the legislation, number one. Now, the legislations are drawn up by lawyers, by people who, swear the oath to uphold the law, but have gone to university to be able to understand the law. So from its inception, when the law says you can only claim by assistance of a lawyer, now the problem started there. Now, the corruption that we speak of, where it happens either from the side of the lawyers or from the side of the employees of the Road Accident Fund, which we have dealt with and we continue to deal with, it's not something new. In the 80s and the 90s, you had people exchanging rugby tickets, corruption to the tune of 10,000 rand. Now it's gone to the millions. Now, let's move to the lawyers. The problem with the lawyers, especially as you said, that some law firms are geared only towards doing work in relation to the Road Accident Fund. And there lies in the milking of the fund, because what they do is, you must remember that for every claim that a lawyer puts in, he gets mandatory, no questions asked, 25%. And so what does that do? What it does is that if a lawyer takes a claim, for instance, let me give you an example of a child that was bumped by a car going to a tuck shop, a 4-year-old, and that 4-year-old went to a clinic and was discharged the same day. In other words, never spent a night. Here comes a lawyer, approaches the mother, goes to the extent of ballooning the claim, wanting 8-point-something million, because he argues, having gone to so many professionals and got a willing one who wrote that this child is not going to do well in matric when they get there. They're not going to have a functional life because they're affected by the accident. In essence, he's asking us to pay 8.3 million rand, and we end up going to court. And rightfully, the judge says, this child is deserving of only 800,000. I'm giving you this example because what happens from the side of the lawyers is they want to get as much money as possible so that their 25% is not at 25% of 800,000 in this case, but it's at 25% of 8.3 million. And so we've got a lot of problems, to the point where we've said to ourselves, hang on, but with SASSA you can claim from the state without the assistance of the lawyer. To NEFSIS, you can claim from the state without the assistance of a lawyer. They have their own problems, but these problems are not visited upon by individuals who set up firms who just want to milk the system. We had the judge president, Dunstan Mlambo, who said the RAF has become a gravity train for lawyers, where you have lawyers lined up at the court, where someone has had a bruise in their ankle, but when they get to the court, the claim is that of a serious head injury. So we have many of those problems. And so there are multiple layers that have caused the problems at the RAF, to the point where we have this tension with the lawyers.
Do people who sit in the parliamentary benches not understand what you would have just said to me, or they have a different opinion? Because part of the problem you would have said is legislative and through a parliamentary process, and whether the bills are set up by lawyers who sit down and craft it, would a conversation through a parliamentary process, through SCOPA and the likes, not bring to light these particular instances that you would have just highlighted, and then necessitate a particular change that they could bring about because they understand what you would have just said? What is then the issue there?
There is an analogy that was used of the Parliament Portfolio Committee on Transport, which you call PICOT. And he said the RAF is like somebody walking through forest with a bag of mealies. The pigeons follow that person. So we are the pigeon that is followed by lawyers to milk. Now, when you come to the issue of the people in Parliament, you must understand that it's a dance. It's a dance between us and the lawyers. I told you that there are lawyers which we pay hundreds of millions to who never miss an opportunity to come and sit at the benches of Parliament. When we go to Scopa, when we go to Picot, when we go to members of Parliament to explain ourselves, we have, through our payments, given them millions of rand which they use to fight. So while we tell the members of Parliament that this is the problem with the system, they spend millions, if not billions, telling the members of Parliament the opposite, because for them, the system as it stands now, being dysfunctional, is good for them. They don't want it to change, because if it changes, it either pays them less or it pays them nothing. So this is the dance that we're involved in. And you ask me, do they understand? Of course they do understand, but you must understand that they also have a view which is quite opposite. So where do they stand on this matter? It is difficult for them, and I do understand. When you have somebody constantly pointing to say, the people who are running this organization are useless, there's mismanagement, there's this and that, and you say to them, hang on, let's change the system. So we have that dance that we have with the lawyers.
McIntos, hold it there. I'm going to ask the guests in studio, an average person listening to the conversation who might go through this, who has gone through this, does the last hour conversation assist them in any way? Are they in good hands from a legal perspective, from a protective perspective? Let's start with you, Suraysha.
Okay, from a legal perspective, with the claimant, a person off the street that has been involved in an accident, the one thing that members of public must understand is they have the right to ask for a bill, for a statement. And when we come to road accident fund matters, there's something called a contingency fee agreement that limits attorneys to 25% of the claim, the settlement amount. And when we say that, the bill can also get taxed. So, for instance, if you have a claim that's 2 million, you'd get 25%, which is about 500,000. So if you feel as a claimant, this amount is a bit too high, you have the right, because the court order stipulates it's either 25% or an attorney-client taxed bill, whichever is the lesser of the two. Because when you get a bill taxed, the taxing master will look to the bill and how each individual has been invoicing. So, for instance, if you are a plaintiff attorney, you will have a whole host of experts that you send your injured person to. From an orthopedic, depending on the injuries, whether it is a fracture or a head injury, you'll get a neurologist, you'll get a orthopedic surgeon, then you're going to get your occupational therapist, your industrial psychologist, and an actuary. And everything in those reports are then quantifiable due to the heads of damage. When the settlement comes out in a draft order, there is a paragraph that stipulates it's either 25% or you get your bill taxed, whichever is the lesser of the two. But what claimants then don't realize is, on top of that, there is the disbursements that they are liable for. So besides paying your attorney his fee for doing his work, you are also liable for the disbursements for going to the doctor. So that is where the understanding comes about. But then you have the LPC, and we have one of the other of the 5 departments that form part of my risk and compliance department is the fees and disbursement department. So if a member of public feels that an attorney has overcharged them and has overreached, they're welcome to lodge their claim with our department, who will then investigate whether there has been overreaching, and then the claimant would be reimbursed.
Suraysha, I'm going to end it there because we have to take the news. Conversations like this would go on forever. Let me say, McIntos, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. It's 2 minutes past. I'm going to say to Tebogo, there's never enough time to have these conversations. The person, of course, on the street that will be in an accident, always the most important one. And Suraysha, thank you so much also for coming into studio. Much, much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Thank you. It's time for the news.